That's the Chinese, probably not Scottish Triclops. They got more. And they got the likes of him.
So you want to be a player, but your wheels ain't flying. You gotta hit us up to get a pimped out ride.
Welcome back to the worst figure review channel on YouTube. I'm Tipgrams420, and today we're going to be taking a look at the S.H.Figuarts Tenshinhan and Chaoz, or Tien and Chatsu, or the Triclops and Victor Chaoz. This guy was released on Premium Bandai at a price tag of $80. Let's just shut the fuck up and take a look at the box to start this double figure review off.
I may look like an adult, but technically I'm not even 10 years old.
Taking a close-up look at the box, it's standard Figuarts fare. You get a clear window that shows Tien and Chaoz, as well as S.H.Figuarts Tenshinhan and Chaoz running down the front, as well as a picture of the two of them on the front of the box there. You get the usual warning. But because this is the Japanese release, there's no Snake's Den sticker. You get the Bandai Tamashii Nations Dragon Ball Z Bandai Collector's Shop and Golden Toei sticker, as well as the Tamashii Nations Quality Seal. Designed by Tamashii Nations in Japan, Bandai Spirits made in China. Up top you got a picture of Tien screaming. Then on the side you got a bunch of pictures of Tien and Chaoz, S.H.Figuarts, Tenshinhan, and Victor Chaoz. On the back you got a whole bunch of blurbs. Read them if you fucking want. Pause the video to read them. Get some pictures of Tien and Chaoz all throughout the back. All of them are nice enough, I guess. Chaoz being the satanic. On the bottom, you got the usual Japanese stuff, completely visible this time around. Because there's no bluefin sticker. On the side of the box you got Tenshinhan and Chaoz, well their name in kanji, S.H.Figuarts Tenshinhan and Chaoz, and on the bottom you got pictures of Tien and Chaoz and S.H.Figuarts Tenshinhan and Victor Chaoz again. Get these two out of the box.
Top of the morning to you, fuckers! It's your boy!
Here the Triclops and Victor Chaoz are out of the box. Now let's shut up and do some comparisons. Two Gokus, just so you can get a frame of reference for how tall he is. Super Buu and Final Form Cooler. And two other members of the Dragon team, Krillin and Piccolo. That about does it for comparisons. Let's just get started with these two. Taking a look at Tiananmen Square's paint and sculpt, I'd have to say they did a good job with this one. If you have the original Tien, you know what to expect out of his legs. They're essentially the exact same sculpt. Done very nicely. There's a lot of detail all throughout. They look very nice and baggy. They're a little glossy around the edges, but they don't look too bad. There is some very nice shading throughout. The kneecaps on the back don't quite match, but I don't know why you'd be looking back here to begin with. The main attraction here is the new upper torso, mainly the chest, because that is essentially what is new on this figure. You get the sash that he had around his chest in the Android saga, as well as a slightly bigger and more rounded head. Stern face anyway, looks very good. The eyes are all painted very cleanly. The third eye is also done very nicely, even if it looks to be hand painted. The cloth around his chest, the sash, is nicely detailed and looks as though it is wrapping around his chest. A lot of line work all throughout. I do like that. A lot. Some musculature detailed through the line work, and that's also pretty cool. And it's even gone down to having the cloth be part of the butterfly joint. Something that I kind of wish they did with Goku, but once we get to Tien's articulation, we can see that's not exactly a strength. But other than a glossier finish on the chest, it's not too bad. Tien's shoulders are huge as per usual. His arms are very nicely detailed with lots of muscles sculpted throughout. Really, the only problem that I would have is some bleeding. Aside from some very minor paint problems, Tien looks very, very nice. But now that we take a look at Tien's paint sculpt, let's look at his accessories.
Maybe he'll be alright.
So not counting Victor Chaoz, here are all of Tien's accessories. You have a screaming face, which I don't think the eyes were printed on very well on mine. One eye appears to be looking a little bit too close to his nose, or the other eyes are facing forward. The gritted teeth face, which looks nice, no real complaints there. And the shocked face, which is a very minor expression. I was not expecting it to be such a subtle expression, but I'll be honest, it's a much better expression than what we got with shit, because it's an actually different expression. He's supposed to be shocked there. As for the hands, you get the standard fists that come with him fresh out of the box, as well as two variations of tri-beam hands. You get the tri-beam where he's closing his hands together, and the Illuminati ray that he fired at Nappa. You could also use it as a Dodonpa sort of hand, or a Dodon ray hand, but it doesn't quite convey the exact same effect, namely because he's supposed to be pointing for that pose. He also comes with a pair of martial arts stance hands and some open palm ki blast hands, or solar flare hands. Enough said there. Let's move on to Tien's articulation.
You're all staring as though you've seen Goku.
Moving into Tien's articulation, the head is on a ball hinge, so it goes up about that far, down about that far. You get the full 360 all around. It's side to side out of the neck. The waist can crunch that far forward and that far back. Shoulder spins full 360. You get a very tight bicep swivel. It's not as dysfunctional as Bardock, but it's very stiff. Double joint at the elbow, wrist pivot and swivel, as well as the butterfly joint on this side, which isn't very effective due to the way they designed it. I think they could have maybe chopped a little bit more here off to get some more range. On this arm, it's actually a little bit better because there's more clearance from the chest. Leg can kick up about that high, back about that far, go out to the side about that much. So do get a thigh swivel, which breaks the sculpt. It doesn't look too great, but it's not awful. Double joint at the knee, which is a little restricted because of the way it's designed, and a double ball peg at the ankle, which allows it to rock in about that far, out about that far, down about that far, up about that far, and get a toe crunch. So overall, Tien has some pretty good movement. It's a little restricted in spots, but it is still good articulation nonetheless. But anyways, let's move on to what many consider to be the main event of this release, Victor Chaoz. First things first here, Chaozu is very, very small, so I'm going to warn you, be very careful with him. I don't know the quality control problems that he has. Mine has a couple problems, but we'll get into that. Just to show you how small he is, he can actually fit in between my fingers, which most figures cannot do. But as far as his paint and sculpt is concerned, he is entirely brand new, and he is very nice all around. His smile is about as creepy as ever. The skin is actually a very sort of a dark off-white color. I was expecting it to be just a pure white color, but it is actually a slightly different color to his eyes, so that is nice, gives it a little bit of contrast. There's some musculature sculpted onto his arms, which I think is a nice touch. The waist is sculpted pretty well. The belt is very detailed as per usual, and his feet are detailed pretty well, and he even has his little treads sculpted into his shoes. Overall, Chaoz was done pretty well. So that about does it for his paint and sculpt. Let's move on to Victor Chaoz accessories. Chaoz's accessories are very bare bones. I suppose it's to be expected considering they treated him as an accessory himself, but I think a couple faces could have added some extra value to this figure. Maybe a stern face or an angry yelling face, something like that. You get some pointing finger hands and some open palm key blast hands, and like with the rest of the figure, these are very, very small. I'd recommend being very careful with these because you could probably lose them very fast. For comparison's sake, I have one off camera here. That's Tien's hand next to Chaoz's hand. Very tiny little hands, but obviously that does it for Chaoz's accessories. Let's move on to his articulation. Chaoz's articulation is a little more restricted than Tien's, but that's to be expected for his size, I suppose. His head is on a double ball peg, which isn't too effective, but it gets most of the range you're gonna need at this size out of the way. His shoulders, if I can pull one of them off, is a ball peg that attaches to a socket like that. It's not the best looking design in the world, but it does get that far out to the side. And that full 360. Single joint at the elbow. It's pretty tight, but it does get the job done. Simple swivel at the wrist. No real up or down movement though. His leg can kick up about that far and doesn't really go back, but it can do that. It kicks out to the side about that far, and you do get a thigh swivel. Do note that the actual thigh piece is more of a floating bit as opposed to actually being attached to the leg. Double joint at the knee, which functions pretty well. And on mine, the left ankle is relatively loose. So if that's the case on yours, be careful. They can move. You get that far inwards, that far outwards, that far down, and that far up. There's no toe joint, but for his size, I don't think that's necessary. So that about does it for Tien and Chaoz. Let's finish this review off, shall we?
Oh, delectable. Of course. For
So my final thoughts on Tien and Chaoz. These two are very solid figures. Chaoz, I think, is very impressive for his size. I like that we've got an articulated Chaoz, especially because the one that we got before was essentially just a backpack from Nappa. But now that we have an actual Chaoz figure in hand, I think he turned out very good. Tien is also pretty solid. Definitely worth it if you don't have the original, like I don't. And even if you do have the original, I'd still say the faces are much nicer on this one. All in all, aside from some minor gripes here and there, these two are very nice and will look good on a shelf. I'd recommend, as always, just wait for a good deal if you want to add these two to your collection. But this has been Dupreens420, and I'll see you guys next time.